Imagine reaching the absolute uh, pinnacle of pop stardom while you're still just a teenager.
Right, which is already kind of hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you're sweeping the Grammys, you're becoming this global icon practically overnight, and your face is on billboards all across the world.
The natural assumption there is that you've basically won the lottery of life.
Exactly. You'd think it's all celebrations.
No.
But your response to all of that unprecedented success is to retreat from the world and create a sophomore album titled Happier Than Ever.
And the kicker is, by her own admission, almost none of the songs on it are actually joyful.
It's wild. Welcome to another episode of Pod. Today we're diving deep into Billie Eilish's critically acclaimed second studio album, Happier Than Ever.
And we are not just going to walk through a track list today.
No, definitely not.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at a story-driven profile of an artist navigating the really dark side of sudden fame, emotional abuse, and intense public scrutiny.
It's really about how she used deep self-reflection to completely pivot her sound and reclaim her autonomy.
Right. At its core, this whole story is a meditation on what a star actually owes you, the audience, in this era of constant social media surveillance.
To grasp the weight of this record, we really have to look at the immense pressure cooker Eilish was living inside just prior to making it.
Oh, for sure. Her 2019 debut album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? That was just a seismic event in pop culture.
It was completely inescapable.
It really was. I mean, it spawned the Hot 100 topping single Bad Guy, and then it just completely swept the 62nd Annual Grammy Awards.
Yeah, she won 5 Grammys, including the big 4, Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Record of the Year, and Best New Artist.
Outwardly, she was on top of the world.
But internally, her reality was really fracturing. Eilish has been remarkably candid about the fact that she kind of hated the expectations that came immediately after that debut.
Which makes sense when you think about the psychology of it all.
Exactly. When a teenager achieves that level of global dominance by recording songs in a childhood bedroom, the industry suddenly steps in to institutionalize that magic.
They want to bottle it and sell it.
Right. She was suddenly bogged down by relentless deadlines, constant meetings, and this crushing, suffocating expectation that she had to just keep feeding the machine.
And that kind of transition, it just breeds severe imposter syndrome.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, when you win 5 Grammys at 18, a part of you probably feels like everyone made a massive mistake. Like, they're going to figure out you aren't actually talented.
It's a huge burden.
It's kind of like being a brilliant architect who just built a masterpiece in private, you know? You're standing in your blueprint room trying to design the next house, but suddenly you have 50 executives in really expensive suits packed into the room with you.
That is a great way to put it.
Yeah, and they're like grabbing your pencil, looking over your shoulder, and telling you to make the new house look exactly like the old one, only somehow bigger and more profitable.
You aren't building for yourself anymore. You're managing a corporate asset.
Exactly. And that industry apparatus is exactly what she needed to escape.
Fleeing that corporate suffocation meant she needed to find a physically and psychologically safe space to create.
Which brings us to a really unexpected turn in the story.
Right. This leads directly into the extreme isolation of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, so recording for this second album took place between April 1st, 2020 and February 16, 2021.
And it happened almost entirely in the basement studio of her brother and sole producer, Finneas O'Connell, in his LA home.
Just the two of them working on weekly schedules?
Which introduces such a fascinating paradox, if you think about it.
Oh, totally. I mean, how does being physically confined to a basement during a terrifying global pandemic actually give an artist the ultimate creative freedom and confidence?
Especially a confidence she couldn't find while touring the free world.
Right. It seems completely backwards.
Well, the physical confinement served as a hard boundary against the corporate confinement.
I see.
But because they were locked down in that basement, the process was completely devoid of record label input.
No executives.
Exactly. There were no A&R folks popping in to check on the radio singles, no endless strategy meetings about market demographics.
Eilish actually described the process as feeling very natural, precisely because that isolation stripped away all the external noise.
It allowed her to finally hear her own artistic voice clearly without, the filter of industry expectations.
She realized she didn't need $1 million studio or an army of producers to make great music.
And the sound they were chasing in that quiet room was a massive departure from her debut.
Yeah, let's talk about that shift because it's huge.
They were aiming for a timeless sound, heavily inspired by the classic jazz singers she grew up listening to.
Artists like Julie London, Peggy Lee, and Frank Sinatra.
We really need to emphasize how drastic this shift was for you listening. The first album was defined by a trappled sound.
Right, meaning it relied heavily on booming 808 bass kicks, rapid-fire hi-hat cymbals, and this slightly menacing hip-hop influence.
But for Happier Than Ever, they stripped all of that away.
That's quite a risk. What did they move toward instead?
They moved toward this subdued, down-tempo, jazz pop and electropop record. It relies on sparse acoustic arrangements, delicate synthesizers, and very quiet, burbling beats.
And that production choice is incredibly intentional, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. By keeping the instrumentation restrained and quiet, they force the listener to lean in.
Because there's no heavy club beat to distract you. You have no choice but to focus entirely on the lyrics and the vocal delivery.
And those lyrics require your full attention because she is exploring some deeply unsafe and uncomfortable territory.
Yeah, the 16 tracks on this album dive into the massive downsides of stardom, power struggles, emotional abuse, and misogyny.
Eilish explicitly stated that her goal was to be deliberately uncomfortable during this creative process.
Which is such a brave thing to do for your highly anticipated second album.
Yeah, and when you look at how the songs are grouped emotionally, you see a very clear progression of her processing this trauma.
We can look at the theme of abuse and coercion, which really anchors the early emotional beats of the album.
The opening track, Getting Older, deals directly with sexual coercion.
It is a stark, brutally honest way to open a massive pop record.
The emotional weight she's processing is staggering. You hear it so clearly on the third single, Your Power.
Oh, that song. It is this very soft, delicate acoustic ballad.
But when you listen to the lyrics, the subject matter is about sexual abuse, grooming, and the reality of being taken advantage of by an older partner.
The contrast there is wild between the gentle, almost lullaby-like acoustic guitar and the devastating lyrics.
It's genuinely chilling when you realize what she's actually describing.
It really is. And then she moves from that quiet, painful confession of abuse directly into a fierce protective stance regarding her own body and her public image.
Which brings us to Not My Responsibility.
Right, which is a spoken word interlude layered over ambient instrumentals.
She originally debuted this piece as a video interlude on tour.
It's a direct confrontation exploring body image, public scrutiny, and the toxic nature of fame.
She is basically forcing the audience to confront their own complicity in consuming her image and policing her body.
And she balances that deep vulnerability with moments of incredibly sharp defiance.
Therefore I Am is the perfect example of this.
Yeah, that was actually the album's biggest commercial hit, right?
It was. It made a historic leap of 92 spots to #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 in a single week.
That's insane. Lyrically, it is this acidic, confident dismissal of her haters and critics.
It's the sound of someone building armor.
While she is building that thematic armor, the musical architecture they're constructing in the background is incredibly sophisticated.
There's a track called Goldwing that perfectly illustrates how far she and Finneas were pushing their boundaries.
The production on Goldwing is absolutely fascinating to me.
It loops a cappella intro that actually interpolates a 1910 composition by Gustav Holst.
And to be clear on what that means for anyone listening, she literally takes the exact melody of that century-old choral piece and weaves it directly into the vocal harmony of this modern electropop track.
And Holst's original composition was itself based on hymns from the Rig Veda, which are ancient Indian sacred texts.
Wow. So she is connecting these ancient, timeless, spiritual elements of human vulnerability directly to her modern digital anxieties.
It creates a lineage of human experience. But as she weaves these ancient texts and acoustic guitars together to process her trauma, she also leans into dark, pulsating electropop to process the immediate, terrifying reality of her daily life.
But wait, looking at the 13th track, NDA, I have to point out something that feels deeply contradictory here.
Okay, let's hear it.
So Eilish writes this incredibly raw, trauma-laden song about having absolutely zero privacy. She sings about being terrified of stalkers, feeling trapped in her own home, and needing a secret partner to sign a non-disclosure agreement just to hang out.
Right.
But then she turns around and releases this confession as a pop single to an audience of millions. Isn't that fundamentally hypocritical?
How do you mean?
Well, you can't really complain about the terror of being completely exposed while deliberately standing on a global stage and broadcasting your most private fears.
It is a profound contradiction, I'll give you that. And it is kind of the defining tension of the entire album.
How do you read it?
Rather than hypocrisy, it's actually a very sophisticated reclamation of power.
Interesting.
Think about it. By putting her trauma into a song literally titled NDA, which is a legal document designed by corporations and powerful people to enforce silence and control, she is taking the tools of industry control and using them for her own expression.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yes, she is broadcasting her lack of privacy, but she now controls the narrative, the tempo, the beat, and the distribution.
So she's taking the power back.
Exactly. When you feel like you have absolutely no agency over your own life, taking the reality of your total exposure and packaging it on your exact terms is a radical act of survival.
She is basically taking the microscope that society pointed at her and turning it into a kaleidoscope of her own making.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And all of this tension, the acoustic restraint, the dark electropop, the quiet reflection on abuse, the anger at the industry, it all builds up to one central explosive moment of catharsis.
The title track, Happier Than Ever.
The structure of this song is just a masterstroke.
It essentially operates as a rock opera.
Yeah, it starts off as this very quiet, mopey, acoustic breakup song. You think you're settling in for another delicate, subdued ballad.
But halfway through, it unexpectedly erupts into a massive electric guitar-driven rager.
It is loud, it is messy, and it is pure, unadulterated release.
The music itself is doing exactly what Eilish's emotions are doing. The musical structure of that specific track mirrors the exact narrative arc of her life during this era.
Exactly. She starts out with this heavily restrained anxiety. She's trying to play the game, trying to be the good pop star, keeping her voice quiet and accommodating while feeling completely suffocated.
And then the second half of the song is just her deciding she has had enough.
She shatters the acoustic restraint, lets go of the control, and just screams it out.
And the way she let go of that control translated into a promotional rollout that was just as intentional as the music itself.
Yeah, she definitely refused to do things the traditional way.
Instead of an immediate stadium tour, she partnered with Disney Plus to release a concert film titled Happier Than Ever, a love letter to Los Angeles.
It was co-directed by Robert Rodriguez and Patrick Osborne, right?
Yes, and they shot it at the Hollywood Bowl.
But the crucial detail here is that because of COVID protocols, there was zero live audience.
Think about the visual poetry of that.
It's amazing you have one of the most famous teenagers on the planet performing these incredibly intimate songs about the isolating nature of fame, standing on the stage of a massive, iconic, completely empty amphitheater.
It perfectly visualizes the core theme of the album being seen by everyone while being entirely alone.
And she carried that deep intentionality into the physical release of the album as well.
She teamed up with the Italian fashion house Gucci for a very unique collaboration.
Alessandro Michele, who was Gucci's creative director at the time, designed a limited vinyl edition of the album.
But it wasn't just a luxury cash grab. The vinyl records themselves were eco-friendly.
Right, created entirely from leftover recycled materials gathered during the original pressing of the standard record.
It ties right back to her reclaiming control.
It wasn't just mass-produced plastic pumped out blindly by a factory. It was a highly curated art piece where she dictated exactly what the physical object would be.
Minimizing waste in a notoriously wasteful industry.
And we have to look at the staggering commercial reality of all this thoughtful, introspective work.
Because you might assume an album this dark, acoustic, and trauma-heavy wouldn't sell like a massive pop record.
But before it even dropped, she reclaimed the Apple Music record for the most pre-saved album ever in the platform's history.
Taking the title back from The Weeknd, which is no small feat.
We really have to ask why this quiet, uncomfortable record exploded globally.
Think about the timing.
Yeah, the album debuted at #1 on the U.S. Billboard 200, moving 238,000 units in its first week.
And it topped the charts in 27 other countries.
She became the third best-selling female artist globally in 2021, behind only Taylor Swift and Adele. Why did it resonate so much?
Because millions of people were sitting alone in their homes during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right. The world was collectively isolated, anxious, and deeply reflective.
The global public was perfectly primed for a down-tempo, introspective album about emotional survival and isolation.
They didn't need club anthems. They needed someone to articulate the quiet anxiety of being trapped.
The cultural timing was basically flawless. The album and its title track went on to earn 7 Grammy nominations.
Proving that her pivot was not just commercially viable, but critically undeniable.
And it's worth noting that the creative process in that basement was so fertile that not everything even made the final cut.
Oh yeah, the sources mention an omitted track called Born Blue.
She couldn't quite figure out how to finish it at the time.
But because she was no longer operating under the crushing deadlines of the industry machine, she didn't force it. She let it sit.
And eventually she mashed that song up into the track Blue on her 2024 album, Hit Me Hard and Soft.
It proves that when an artist is given the safety to create without a stopwatch, the ideas will eventually bloom when they are ready.
So, if we bring this back to the opening tension we discussed, the title of the album, Happier Than Ever.
It is deeply ironic.
The songs are not joyful, and the subject matter is painfully, brutally dark.
But in a deeply profound way, the title is also ultimately truthful.
How so?
Well, by shedding all of those industry expectations, by flat out refusing to play the role of the accommodating pop star, and by taking total unapologetic ownership of her trauma and her sound, she actually found a genuine sense of confidence.
She survived the summit of the mountain by firing the executives and building her own shelter.
Exactly. She found an artistic happiness and an autonomy that she simply didn't have when she was holding all those Grammys for her first album.
This album serves as a masterclass in the tension between private pain and public consumption.
It asks you, the listener, to pause and consider the transaction of celebrity.
What right do we actually have to our favorite artists' personal lives?
And in an era where we demand constant access, how much candor do they truly owe us?
It's a heavy question.
It leaves you wondering, now that she has successfully dismantled the pop star machine and proves she can win entirely on her own terms, what happens to an artist whose primary muse was her own discomfort when she actually becomes truly happy?
I guess we'll have to wait and see what she builds next.
Thanks for listening to popConfronting. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.